Hi, this is Michael Waits, and welcome back to InsurTech Amplified. We are joined today by Michael Silverman, the president and CEO of Silver Lining Insurance. And Michael, I was thinking about this. When this recording's over, I'm going to run this recording through Otter, which is going to build a transcript, and it's not going to know the difference between you and me, and we both have the same name. Anyway, before we get into the main part of the conversation, let's give the listeners a little bit of your background, just for some context, yeah?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. My background, I'm an insurance lifer. I was actually born into the business.
Really?
I am third generation insurance.
Oh.
So my family has been in the insurance business consecutively since 1926.
Go ahead.
And, we handle personal insurance, commercial insurance, property and casualty, and life and health. We are old-time insurance agents. I love what we do for a living because all I get to do is help people. I know it sounds hokey, but
no,
it is
not,
what
actually.
we do. And it's so much fun to see the smile on someone's face when they're going through a problem and we're able to put a check in their hand to pay for it. We can't do the emotional part. But we get to put money in their pockets to fix what either God did in a tornado or an earthquake or a fire or anything like that, or God forbid someone passes away. These things happen.
So it's weird for me, right? So my grandmother was in the insurance industry as well. Like my grandfather used to drive because she couldn't drive. And my grandfather used to drive her every day to Boston. And she worked at Aetna for who knows how many years. And I hadn't thought about it a lot. But does that make me second generation? Here's what I want to know, though. So who's this? Your grandfather?
Yes.
Did he have his own brokerage as well? Or did he work at a big company? Like, what's the genesis here?
Small agency, downtown Manhattan.
I love it.
In those days, no one had corporate names like Silver Lining or this or that. Everybody was Aaron Silverman Insurance. And I remember as a kid, my dad having a stack of business cards this thick in his pocket because they were his insurance business cards for each individual insurance company. So my dad would have a business card for Aetna. My dad would have a business card for Travelers, for this one, for that one, because each carrier provided them with business cards. And what he was selling was insurance. Who he was just Aaron. It didn't matter whether it was this company or this company. It's just, here's my business card.
Wait, so back then you could represent every insurance agency and they would actually give you a separate business card.
Well,
but
if
how
you had
did you
a
know
contract,
which one to give?
If you had a contract with the carrier to represent them, they wanted you to go out there and advertise, hi, Michael Silverman, Aetna Insurance. They wanted that.
So but is that the same today? Like, is that the same today or no? Like, did the regulations change? Because I was under the impression that like you had to represent just one company, even if you were an independent agent, but that's not true, yeah?
That is not true. So Silver Lining, we are independent agents. We represent somewhere in the 35 to 40 different insurance companies.
I love it. Okay, go ahead.
So that's part of what I love to do because I don't know what carrier I'm going to write a piece of business with for Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Because we sit with Mr. and Mrs. Smith and say, okay, what are your worries, your desires, your needs, your exposures? And let's match the insurance company with you, not the other way around.
So my grandfather, and you'll see where this is going in a second, but my grandfather was like in the fruit business, and he and his brother actually controlled like the fruit trade on the East Coast of the United States from like the 1920s until the 1940s. You know, my dad was one of these guys who was like, I'm never going to be in the fruit business ever because like I've just had enough grapefruit for like to last me for the rest of my life. Were you in this situation where like Grandpa, I'm presuming, was talking about insurance. Then your dad was talking about insurance, or your dad and mom at the dinner table. Were you one of these kids who was like, I'm never going to do that? Or were you like, that is the only thing want to do. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. And no, I was not the one, I'm doing this, I'm not doing this. I had no idea. So
No
first,
idea. But they were talking about it every night at home, right? I mean, there's no way to get away from it if you have your own brokerage. Yeah.
of course. And it's interesting because I never met either of my grandfathers. Okay. They both predeceased my birth.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you. So I remember like it was yesterday, the Thursday before Thanksgiving, my senior year in college.
Yeah.
I called my father and I said, I'm ready. He goes, great. For what?
Yeah, exactly. Uh-oh. He was like, uh-oh.
I said, to come into the business. And this is a direct quote, which I have never forgotten. That's terrific. Let me get you an interview. An interview? What are you talking about? An interview?
Where?
He would not let me start with him.
Yeah, for sure.
Which, by the way, I didn't understand at 21 years old.
Right.
But at 59, looking backwards, it was the greatest thing he ever did for me.
So where did you go?
I started with the Guardian Life Insurance Company of America as a life insurance and disability only salesperson.
Yeah.
So through their training program, I learned how to prospect, talk to people. And the number one thing that they taught me was how to accept and take no, a rejection,
Yeah.
which was interesting because I don't take rejection well.
No?
I like to be liked. But you know what?
Fair enough.
I can't be, and I've learned this over the last 40 years, I can't be all things to all people that I don't want to be.
Yeah.
And I'm not the cup of tea for everybody.
Right.
So that, again, that's what I love because I just don't know where my conversations with a prospect, business or personal, anything, life and health, probably where it's going to take us. And then most importantly, who do they know that they care about that they want to help be protected?
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the cool thing about the insurance industry at some level, right? Is that you're really just offering protection to people at the point of time where they're most vulnerable. And once people understand that, I think it makes it really easy for them to understand why you're doing this. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. The idea of being there when someone has a problem is what it's all about. One of the things my father taught me, a phrase that has stuck in my mind: anybody can sell insurance. You need to be the one that's there when there's a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what we...
Yeah, so because it's really funny, right? Like if you buy a car, you drive it every day, right? So whatever car you drive, you want to make sure that it works for you every single day. But when you buy insurance, you're not driving it every day. But boy, on the day you need to drive it, so this is like where we talk about when the claim is where the rubber hits the road, right? But there are plenty of other times in the insurance life cycle where you really have to be there. Like, what does this mean? Am I covered? Why am I not covered? How can I fix that problem? What does my policy really mean? And I think this is one of the things that your dad was trying to tell you, right? Selling it, it's easy. Easy in relative terms, right? It's not that easy, but you understand my point, right? Like anybody can sell it. But are you going to be there when they need you to be there? Because that's the difference. No, that's the real differentiator. It's the service part of it that really matters. Yeah.
When they need something as simple as, oh my goodness, I'm trading in my 2018 Mercedes for a 2023 Mercedes, or
right.
And they just want to get it done. They don't want to think.
Yeah, I don't want to think about it.
Right. And what we do, and what we tell our new clients, is we don't want you to have to do anything. We want you to call us.
Yep.
We handle it soup to nuts. You're telling us you're getting a new car? Wonderful. When are you getting it? Thursday. Terrific. By the time you walk into the dealership to take home your new baby, everything you need from an insurance end is already there.
So let me ask you this, though. Did you start Silver Lining yourself, or is this a continuum from your dad's business?
So
because remember, you said your grandfather, just to get this, your grandpa was Aaron, yeah? Do I have that right?
Yeah, father was Aaron. father was
That's your
Aaron.
dad. Oh, right. So, but you said like his business was just like, oh, Aaron. So maybe this is yours. I love the name, by the way. Obviously, it's a play on words, which is beautiful. I almost said the word I shouldn't have said, but yeah, it's beautiful. But like, how long have you been running your own agency? So, like, how long did you work at Guardian and then say to yourself, okay, I'm really good at this. I'm going to do this on my own. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. So I graduated college, as I said, the May after I told him I was ready. So in the summer of 88, I joined the Guardian Life Insurance Company. Learned how to sell then. But I was always pretty close to my dad because our offices were next door to each other, building in Manhattan. My dad had his own agency. I was with the Guardian office. 3 years later, I moved my physical being into my dad's office because now we were going to be partners and move forward, growing the property and casualty and life and health. But I'm coming in to him. But now I'm still representing Guardian Life.
Okay.
Okay. So my dad renamed his father and then an agency in 1979. That's when the branding began in the industry. No one could be Aaron, so you needed a name. So he put together a new agency called Gloron, Gloron agency. Okay. Terrific. Now, what does Gloron stand for? Gloria, my mother, and Aaron, my father. Gloron. So the running family joke, and by the way, we did have this on our website in those days. The running family joke was, if my mother's name was Maureen, we would have been the Moron Agency. Exactly.
This is a uniquely your kind of sense of humor. Let's just say that.
So that ran for years. We grew the business. Everything was terrific. My dad retired in 2014, 15-ish.
Okay, not that long ago.
No. And in the fall of 2019, well, in the winter of 2019, I was approached by someone. They wanted to buy the agency.
Okay.
It was not for sale.
Yep.
What's the phrase? They made me an offer I couldn't refuse.
Exactly. I've seen The Godfather too many times.
So October 2nd, 2019, I sold my 96-year family agency.
Oh, wow.
Sold it to a credit union out of Wisconsin, and everything was great. October 2, everybody signed the documents, 2019.
Okay.
Like many times over the years when a bank buys an insurance agency, it doesn't always work.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, we hit some bumps in the road. I left the new agency. I was supposed to stay on with contract to be the president, CEO, and run the organization. Okay. In April of 20, I started a new. I didn't want to sit home. First of all, it was the beginning of COVID.
COVID, yeah.
I was too young to retire.
Sure.
And as my wife always likes to say, forget COVID for a second, had I stayed home and retired at that point, I would have lost half the sale price of the divorce attorneys. She would have just divorced me right then and there. Exactly. So I started Silver Lining. And it's funny, and I thank you for acknowledging the name and all this kind of stuff. But really, how did the name come about? We were sitting at dinner, my wife and myself, outside, because it's COVID, with some friends and telling what's going on. And one of our friends said, Silverman, every time there's a claim, there's got to be a silver lining. Oh! Done. And that's how it was born. So Silver Lining started in actually, let's just use June of 20. And we have been going, obviously we were remote exclusively during the COVID process, but I have now a team of people that some of whom were with me in the old agency.
Yeah.
some new folks. And it's interesting. We are having more fun now than I did for years in the past. We're larger now as an organization economically than we were when I sold the organization. We're a bigger
Interesting.
agency in business now, 4 years later, than we were when I sold the old, and we are so many fewer employees.
So this is what I wanted to ask you though. Like if you said to me, look, I started at Morgan Stanley in 1987 and I left the financial services industry in 2011, almost at the beginning of 2012. If you asked me like what the biggest change was, I would say technology. Like when I arrived, literally there was a 10 key. You must know what this is on my desk. I'm not kidding. It had paper in it. Like I literally would like be adding stuff up on a 10 key. I didn't even have like an HP 12C, although I bought one soon after that. But like I was the guy who like started taking technology and employing it everywhere. And this is one of the things that made me famous and useful over time. And in a way, I kind of automated myself out of a job over like a 22 or 23-year period of time.
Right.
The insurance industry has been a little bit slower, although not much slower, to be fair, in employing like new and modern technologies. So I'll leave that up to you to decide. But that would be my answer is like, what was the biggest change? Is that artificial intelligence? We use a lot of machine learning. We did a lot of back testing, all this kind of stuff. Just, I mean, take as much time as you want, really. But like, what are some of the biggest changes that you've seen in insurance that I might not know about?
Well, first and foremost, you hit the nail on the head because the insurance industry is traditionally 10 years behind the times of any change. It is the slowest changing industry anywhere. Now, I'm sure some investment managers would question that. They think they are, or vice versa. But the number one change, without a doubt, is this.
The mobile phone.
The mobile device. I can, if I'm in the supermarket on a Saturday afternoon and a client calls me and says, oh my God, I forgot to let you know yesterday, I'm literally at the dealership getting a new car.
Right.
You know, in years past, it would be, first of all, in years past, they couldn't reach me because no one had mobile phones. Okay. Right. But now I can actually step to the side of the aisle because I don't want to get knocked over by a cart from one of the ladies driving down the aisle. I can go onto my phone, onto my system, and I can email ID cards from the supermarket.
But do you write your own tech?
No. The insurance industry.
You outsource.
So we purchase software, both CRM systems as well as carrier systems. Now, the CRMs are private companies, so they are way ahead of the carrier systems. You know,
for sure.
Some of the carrier systems are still working on their 1992 system.
I mean, look, even when I was at Goldman Sachs, when I first joined Goldman in, I don't remember what year it was anymore, 2001. Yeah, because that's when Kyla was born. They were running stuff on like the oldest systems I'd ever seen in my whole life. It was the earliest I ever had to get into work just to make sure that I could get ready for the open. It took me like 4 hours to do that. It was insanity.
I have one particular client. I happened to have spoken to him yesterday. He now lives in the Midwest. He was living in New Jersey back in the mid-90s. Young man then. I teased with him then. I went to his home to talk about life insurance. His new wife and I sat on the floor in their new townhouse because they didn't have any furniture.
Right.
We ordered in pizza, and he still teases with me. I turned on my laptop, which probably weighed God knows what, and you could hear it revving up. It took a good 15. I think the pizza came before we booted up the system.
Maybe.
But that's the neat thing about technology, how it changes so quickly and then it doesn't. Now, I'm not the most techno-savvy guy in the world. I am fortunate that I have a team that work with me that is I have two grown daughters and a son-in-law that are. So
Right.
when the old man doesn't know how to get this thing done, someone does. But technology has made it, as I mentioned before, we are a much larger agency today than we were when we sold with fewer employees because of technology.
So I was recording with somebody in the real estate market in Singapore a few days ago, but in the context of insurance. And I asked him, he said he has 60% market share of the real estate market in Singapore. Pretty amazing guy, a guy who
Wow.
runs a company called PropNex. Yeah, and he's been doing this for 30 years. So 1 decade shorter than you've been doing. And I said to him, was the tech that you built driven by like the customers, or was it an internal idea? And he said, if you're waiting for your customers to tell you that they need technology, you're way too late, because it means they're getting it from somewhere else.
Correct.
And then you're too late. So how do you keep up with all these advancements? I know you said that there are people inside the company that are doing this, but like, when do you figure out, like, I have to rely on the people that are with me to do this? Because even if I'm not the most tech enabled guy, I'm tech savvy enough to understand that it's important. Does that make sense?
Yes. One of the things we do on a monthly basis, once a month, we have a technology meeting in our office.
Oh,
Not
wow.
about what do we have.
Yeah.
I want to dream to 2045. What is the craziest thing we can come up with? One of the things we did early on of Silver Lining that we did not have at the old agency.
Yeah.
And it wasn't so chic when we did it at Silver Lining, but to a lot of agencies, it was. I didn't want company involvement, insurance company involvement. I wanted a Silver Lining app on my client's phone.
Okay.
Now, if Michael is a client of the Travelers or the Hartford or Chubb or whatever, can they go on to those companies again? Absolutely, yes. But if you have policies with multiple carriers, which many, many, many of our clients do,
For sure.
to go here and here and here and here is crazy. So what did we do? We hired a developer who actually developed the Silver Lining app. And sure enough, on our phones, every client gets this when you become a client. There's an app with the Silver Lining logo. And the first time that I saw that on a phone, I didn't even know if it worked. I just thought it was the coolest looking thing in the world. And then that it worked, that was amazing. So clients don't have to go to 47 different websites. And let's be realistic, on their phone. In many states today, ID cards for your car, the auto insurance ID card, in many states, you can use a digital ID card.
That's awesome.
Not all states, but oh my God, where is that ID card? Or I'm going to the dealership, I need a loaner, I don't have my ID card. Blah, blah, blah. Just go right to your app. There it is.
I spent a lot of time when I was a kid with my grandfather as well. And I sometimes think, like, what would he think about the life that I'm living if he could see it? And do you ever think about your grandfather, I mean, and your dad as well, just seeing that app on the phone and thinking, that's where we went? Do you know what I mean?
Well, yes. For many years, my dad and I used to laugh because the insurance industry, again, way behind time, there was a mantra for the industry in 1993. It was paper free in 93. Now, obviously, that didn't,
I like it.
it didn't work. So you know what they came out with in 94? No more in 94.
No more what? Yeah, exactly.
Well, guess what? In 2003 and 2004, they re-upped those. The insurance industry is not paper free. Is my agency? No, it's paper less. You still need paper. I, as a salesman, as a business owner, as a guy who's not in his 30s, okay, I like paper. I find it easier to work with and things like that. But not it. But
Fair
you know
enough.
what? But you got to be able to make things happen quickly. So if it's in the system, boom, out. But for me, when I am working something up, I like to have paper.
So when you look around the ecosystem now in the United States, right, whether it's in the New York metropolitan area or in Silicon Valley, you see all this stuff happening in the InsurTech space, right? Like, I don't know if I'd call Silver Lining an InsurTech per se, because the value add is not necessarily the insurance, it's probably the relationship. So fair enough. But when you look at like Lemonade and some of these other big prominent InsurTechs, like, do you invest in them? What do you think about them? How are they impacting your business? I'm curious.
They have impacted my business directly because they're new competition.
In a way, right? Are they new competition, or can you use them to help your business thrive? No?
Well, I use them because they are competition. Now, what do I mean by that? I can't write Lemonade. Okay?
Because
I can't write Hippo because they're direct writers. They're direct to consumer. They don't use agencies.
So they're MGAs.
They
have their own
writers.
capacity.
They're direct
writers. Okay, they have their own capacity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, how do I use them to my advantage? I get referred to somebody. They send me their policies. How do they send them to me? We have a secure link. They click it. They download. Blah, blah. Very simple. Again, technology makes life very simple. I don't need them to call again. I look at the policy, and my first question to a prospect is, why? Why what? Why do you have this? And the answer invariably is, I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah.
And that's great, because now I begin my conversation with them. It's not about premium, although it's always about premium. No one wants to pay more than they have to.
Yeah.
It's about protection. It's about knowing what are you protecting and what do you wish to protect. And those are the conversations. Yeah, I never use the word need, because my clients are lawyers, doctors, Indian chiefs, salespeople, business owners. They're everything under the sun. They're retired people. They're great at what they do. They don't know what they need 15 years from now. Some of us don't even know what we need tomorrow.
Yeah.
So my question is, what would you like? Silver Lining's tagline, if you will, is Silver Lining protects what you value most.
So this brings up a really good question, right? Because I do the same thing when I podcast. I want to talk about the things that you care about. But the way you find out what somebody else cares about has to have changed over time. So like when you look at the way, you must have some people, and I think it's kind of cool, who like their great-grandchildren, right? Their grandparents dealt with your grandfather's agency, and then some of them dealt with your dad's agency, and now they're dealing with yours. Like the generations over time, there must be a cohort of people that have done that, where they knew like every Silverman, if that makes sense. But the way you deal with them must have changed over time, and the way you maintain that relationship has changed over time. Tell me how that works as well.
I am proud to say we have two families that are fifth generational to our family agency. It's really kind of cool. And by the way, they feel that way as well.
Right.
It's that to me, that's family.
Yeah.
Our old tagline with the old agency was our family, because it was me and my dad, our family protecting your family since 1926.
I saw that, yeah.
That's cool. Okay. Now, we're not allowed to use that anymore. Okay. So
yeah.
The new agency, protecting what you value most. I don't care what you value most. I want to protect it. Some people, it's their lives, their ability to earn an income. It's their house. It's their cars. So yes. So how do I communicate with different generations? Absolutely has changed. And we have all been taught, do unto others as you want done unto you, correct?
For a long time, yeah.
We threw that out. We threw that out at Silver Lining. We changed it. Is we do unto others the way others want to be done.
Yeah.
So, for example, I have clients.
It's a very nuanced difference, though, Michael. Like, it sounds like the same thing, but it's very different. Sorry, go ahead.
I have clients in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, and some in their 90s, who don't want emails or texts. They want all-American phone call. They want to hear my voice.
Call me.
God bless.
Yeah.
So in our system, it says phone.
Yeah.
There are people who only want emails. There are people who only want text. We now have people who say, I want the email for documentation, but text me that you're emailing me.
Yeah. Don't call me, please.
Right.
Just don't call me. Yeah.
We treat them the way they want to be treated, not how we want to be treated.
I like it.
And everybody's different. And you know how we find out how they want to be treated?
You ask them.
We ask. Okay. Novel
it's
concept.
Radical.
We ask.
It's radical.
So we have someone on our team, when a family or a business becomes a client, they've talked to me, they've talked to the team, but this one woman reaches out and goes through a litany of questions. You know, some people call it onboarding and things like that. What is important to you? How do you prefer us to communicate with you? Because we want to make it as easy as humanly possible.
Yeah.
We never did that in the 80s and 90s. You picked up the bloody phone.
Yeah.
You know, you and I are old enough to remember maps. Forget Waze, forget Google Maps. And we had a map in our car. You know, this kind of map, not this kind of map.
No.
Then we also know
it folded
calendars.
Yeah.
You know, and day timers. Then it went to the Palm Pilot. Then it went to the BlackBerry. And I was never going to get an iPhone because I needed the buttons that was on the BlackBerry. Then I went to an iPhone. Then I went to this iPhone. Then I went to, who knows what's next? The next one's going to be embedded.
What does that mean? So it's a great segue though, right? Like I remember reading an article. It must have been in like 1993 where it said, I feel like it was on like page 4 of maybe of the New York Times. It was like, scientists have now developed the technology to mimic the behavior of the human eye. And I just thought, I've seen Terminator 1 and 2, and I'm scared.
Well, you know, if you think about it, we're not that far from that because we can open up locks with our eyes now.
But I do believe, but I've said for a long time, right, that like your phone right now is something you carry. At some point, it's just going to be something that's embedded in your ear. And over time, you're just going to be, the upgrades will either be in software or they'll take it out and they'll just implant something there as well. And I think that the eye is going to be the same thing. But where do you see this going from an insurance industry perspective? Do you know what I mean? Because you're right. The way you communicate is going to change. The way the possibilities are going to change. So like you said, in the 70s and 80s, the only way to contact your client was either through snail mail, a letter, or you'd call them. And if they had no answering machine, which a lot of people didn't have, you just have to call them again. But now there are like 15,000 ways to contact them. There are 12 messenger apps, there are different ways to email, all this kind of stuff. So it's just going to keep changing and iterating. But where do you see it going?
It's a constant.
Again, here's the thing though, Michael, right? You have these meetings every week, you said, or every month? I can't remember what you said.
On technology side, every month.
Every month, right? So you're talking about it. But there must be some guy or some gal in the meeting who goes, we better be prepared for this thing and think about it. But there could be 10 of those things and only 2 of them are going to be true. So like, where do you think it's going?
Whenever we talk about this, I sit in these meetings and I laugh because we are talking about George Jetson.
Yeah, for sure.
Because who knows? Now, where's it going? It's just going to continue to evolve to ease of doing business. Now, to me, ease of doing business is not always initially ease of doing business. It actually is harder when you start something new. Then it becomes the norm. Cell phones, they were cool. You and I remember StarTAC and the flip phones and the this phone. No one texted, but that was the coolest thing in the world. I remember my first built in my car phone.
There were whole companies called like the car phone companies. Anyway,
Absolutely.
sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely. And then you had the bag phone. And then you had the brick.
Right, I had a brick.
Look, hey, no one knows where this is going. They probably know out in Silicon Valley, up in Redmond, Washington,
Maybe.
you might know, but to an insurance guy in the New York metropolitan area who deals with people all over the country and internationally, I am dependent on the growth from Silicon Valley. So, for example, WhatsApp. I am able to communicate so much easier now with clients that have moved abroad through WhatsApp.
Because it's free, right?
It's free, which makes it easier for them.
And it's also ubiquitous. It's always on, yeah.
Right. It has become their norm because they still have family and friends here. It's their normal operating procedure.
Yeah.
So what tomorrow brings, realistically, we're not going to have computers anymore. Everything's going to be smaller. Everything's going to be faster. I walk around with an iPhone. I walk around with a laptop, with an iPad. I don't know why I still carry my iPad. I have, we don't use legal pads anymore. Now we have these Remarkables that are digital that you can email. And you can do. Tomorrow is unknown. And yes, when we sit in our meetings, what can we possibly be doing better technologically to make our lives easier in servicing our prospects and our clients, but more importantly, making the lives of our clients easier to communicate with us for what they want going forward.
Okay, I have one more thing for you, and this is a little bit more, I wouldn't say controversial, but it's a different look on the same kind of data set, a different view on the same kind of data set. In a way, I think it's more important to understand it's not just tech, right? So like when I was a kid, I just wanted to have my own car. But I'm betting my daughter's younger than your kids, I think, just by a little bit because I got married late. I don't think she'll ever own a car. I don't think she cares. I really don't. And then there's this whole concept of like their lifestyle, because they travel more, they don't own a home, they live in different places. So it's not just the tech that serves them, it's that their lifestyles are changing in a way that's kind of radical, right? So like this idea, we talked about like your grandfather or my grandfather, right? If my grandfather looked at my life today, he'd be like, what are you doing in Bangkok? Like it makes no sense. Right. He was born in Boston. He grew up in Boston. He lived in Boston. He moved to a Boston suburb. He died in North Carolina just because he was summering there and was in a hospital there. Like, but that was it. Maybe he had a house in Florida at some point, right? But my daughter's life has been uniquely international. And I don't like, what kind of insurance is she going to need to buy? And how does that change the way you serve your sixth generation of clients? It's more than just the tech, right? It's that their lifestyles are completely changing. And, this property and casualty line, right? Where it's like, I have a home, I have a couch, I have a car, and I have a TV. And if that burns down, I need insurance. But like, what if I'm living in an Airbnb? Do you know what I mean? Like, how does that change the way you look at it? Do you have those conversations at work?
We do, because we have now written in the last 2 or 3 years more single family home renters policies than we ever did in the past. Yeah. Everybody would buy a home or maybe rent an apartment, but people are renting homes more than we've ever seen because they don't want to be tied down. the economy and interest rates and all that kind of stuff. But people are
But I think it's more
renting
than that.
long term. But now they're short-term rentals, whether it's an Airbnb, a VRBO, or any of the other, or we have a number of clients that own multiple properties, and they are seeing such an uptick in their rent.
Right.
Because the market, the demand is so great, because our children don't want to own. They want to be free to go and move and whatever at a moment's notice, whether it's to move overseas, because now it doesn't matter where you are. You can work for your company from anywhere, as long as you have enough watches on your wrist to know what time it is where you're talking to.
Exactly.
Okay? That's all you need. Because since COVID especially, and we've seen this in the financial services industry, they're everywhere. We have salespeople from Silver Lining that live in Colorado. Why not? By the way, we then, when we have team meetings, it's all video, no problem.
Yeah.
They're just getting up a little earlier. Or we'll do it a little bit later here. We have salespeople in London. We haven't gotten quite to your end of the world, but we will. And by the way, who knows when or where they come from? But that's the exciting part. I don't know. That's what I'm so excited about this industry. I just don't know what tomorrow's, oh my goodness, is. That's so cool.
That is super cool. And it's super cool. And it's also a great way to end. Michael Silverman, the president and CEO of Silver Lining Insurance. This has been awesome. I feel like we could have gone on for 2 or 3 more days, but I'm going to let you go. This was really incredible. Tell me you'll come back on as things change, because I feel like we can continue to have really great conversations.
It would be my honor. Thank you for having me. And like anything else in today's world, let everybody be healthy and safe. We'll worry about everything else later.
Thank you.
Be well.